to be a ceremonial art and children's pastime, no more than that. Typically, if you hear about origami these days, people tell you it's one sheet of paper, usually square, folded, no cutting. But actually, if you go back to the origins, Japanese designs use cuts and use multiple sheets of paper. This is 3 cranes folded from the same sheet with several cuts made in the sheet of the paper. Goes back to late 18th century. Even before that, the earliest book that shows examples of origami shows several models that require multiple sheets. So traditional models use cuts, they use multiple sheets, but adding constraints sometimes makes things more interesting. So if you have only one square sheet of paper, what can you do? You can do this. You can do this. The kraken and the ship are made from the same square sheet of paper, no cutting. Technically, this is 2 sheets because the sea, that patch of water, is a separate sheet of paper. But each of the warriors, together with their armor and weapons, from a single sheet of paper. So even when you limit the means, a single uncut square, what is possible? Well, mathematicians will tell you everything is possible. Every shape can be folded. They don't quite tell you how, but they tell you a little bit about it. They tell you where the lines need to be on the sheet of paper in order to get the result. They don't tell you in what order to make them, and they sometimes don't quite tell you how to get to them. It can be complicated. In particular, the sequence of steps that you need to make is what makes things difficult. Here's an example of a folded piece of paper that is really difficult to get into the shape it is here. You have to crumple the paper pretty much and move it through positions it really doesn't want to be in. You could get the shape if you added a lot more creases. But if you don't want anything extra, if you don't want a line going straight here, then you have to work really hard. To zoom in, this is what it looks like. It's not exactly neat, but you still get an interesting effect. So how do you design these things? How do you come up with this? Well, traditionally, origami is based on things called bases. The preliminary base, the fish base, and the bird base and the frog base are shown here. There are 6. I was just seeing these. So they tend to follow a pattern, but the goal is to get tips, points that you can move independently. And they can become legs or ears or hands or limbs of animals or plants. Freeing that paper is what you like to do in designing origami. There are other approaches to doing this. Some are based on creating simple boxy shapes. Others take the base idea of creating 3 points to its extreme, and people have designed algorithms and computer programs to do it. You say, I need so many legs of this length, a body of this length, and so many legs of that length, and you put it into the program, and you get back a pattern. And if you can make the paper fold in along those creases, you get the base from which you can then shape your model. That's how things like kraken attack are designed. The ship has a certain length, its masts are in certain positions, the sails, the kraken itself with all its tentacles. But you have to do a lot of geometry for that. You have to go through mathematics. This is a basic pattern for kraken attack. The kraken itself is here, the ship is here, sails are marked. This was actually designed and drawn by hand by Brian Chan because that's just how he likes to do things. But people like Robert Lang have written computer programs and made them available. You can go on the internet and download the program and design your own insects tonight. So all of this means that you have geometry that constrains you. You have to go through a lot of geometry to do this. You basically solve an optimization problem to get the best layout of points on the paper. And then you have to figure out how to solve the problem of actually folding the thing. There are constraints that are inherent in working with a single piece of paper. The paper typically doesn't stretch, and so piecewise isometry in the distances between points. It also can be, whatever you fold, you can unfold it back to a flat sheet. Whatever you do with paper, you still have a developable surface. The Gaussian curvature remains zero, no matter what you do to it. And worst of all, at least to me, I like to work intuitively. So, and it's sort of strange saying that as a mathematician, but you have to do a lot of advanced planning in order to design origami using traditional techniques. So what I'll try to show you is my approach to coming up with a more intuitive way of folding. And I'll start by going through a couple examples of what other people have done in order to achieve their own way of doing so. So a more intuitive way to design origami. An example is Yandin. His pieces are unique. They seem very simple. They're as abstract as they can be almost, and still represent something. But if you see him make these, it takes seconds. It's really fast. And it's really intuitive for him. It works. I've tried. I've folded with him, and coming up with designs like this is beyond me. Joisel also had an intuitive way of designing his own extremely complex pieces. He could figure out roughly how much paper he needed for each important part of a figure, and then leave that much paper, and then align things somehow, and get the design to work out. He was creating these basically using paper and pencil, but following the same algorithms that people implement and use in computers. But these are extremely complex in combining all these different elements. So again, there's a fairly rigid procedure through which he goes in order to build something like this. Of course, his simpler works are simpler in design as well, and these masks show that, well, what you need is a little bit extra paper. In order to get these eyes to form, or the nose, you need to free up a little bit of paper to, there's a pleat underlying this and going across, and then you can get this ridge and the eye below it. Similar with the mouth. So simple things you can try to design on an ad hoc basis, sort of a free-form shaping approach. But it's based on pleating. And here's what you get when you go further with pleating. Joel Cooper designs his masks based on a triangular grid. And then he has a box at home with a lot of different eyes that he's folded, and a lot of different noses and mouths and ears. And then he figures out how to put them together in as efficient a way as possible. You can get basically anything you want from those elements that he's designed. It's a slightly more generic approach. Systematically, you create this extra paper with pleats. But you can do something like this with just pleating as well. So this is one of my pieces. And the whole thing is, again, you get extra paper by putting in pleats, because then you can pull apart those pleats and stretch the paper and shape it. So I've been building towards this for a long time, but I'm still not quite there. You can, when you have something like this, you can start sculpting with paper. And that's the whole goal. To be able to treat paper as a sculptural medium. So what's a pleat? Well, just that. Right? Two parallel folds, one a mountain fold, one a valley fold. There are a lot of pleats here, and all that's there are pleats. There are a lot of pleats here. The arrangement and the order in which you make them and how you coax the paper into the shape is what gives you the result. Here, all the pleats follow a square grid. This is an example of one of Joel's masks in progress to try to convince you that it really is one piece of paper with no cutting. Here, the mouth is formed, the chin, the nose is just beginning to show, And you can see that the paper doesn't really want to lie flat because there's extra paper trapped in the pleats down at the bottom, but not upstairs, up there. So the technique I work with is based on just a sequence of intersecting horizontal and vertical pleats. It comes from a single piece by Paul Jackson, a British-Israeli origami artist. He called it The Bulge, and the full description just talks about how he folded it. There's a sequence of pleats running horizontally and a sequence of pleats running vertically. They interleave, and under the tension of the paper, the final piece curves. Well, I tried to do that by following those instructions, and this is like not quite the same. It took me about 10 years to realize that there was a bit missing. The basic pattern's right, but there's an extra fold that you have to make along each of the two edges that try to open up in order to lock it and give it the bulgy shape that it has in the end. What happens is the pleats up in the picture on the top left, you can see the pleats opening up under the tension. If you force them together and fold an extra crease over them, you lock them in place, and then the curvature happens the way it did in the original piece by Paul Jackson. And make 4 of those at once from the same sheet of paper. Each of these corners is the basic bulge piece by Paul Jackson, but this is something that I've never seen before. I thought, well, you can do 4 at once, you can do all kinds of combinations. And if you fold, instead of from the corners, if you start at the center and fold outwards, you get something that doesn't even curve. It's more like a pyramid. If you do both of those things at once, you get 8 sequences interleaved. You get a pyramid, an inverted pyramid in the center here, and then curved corners like that. Other possibilities. If you do something a little more restrained, you get 2 curved corners opposite each other, but they curve in different directions. I call this the wave. This is the double wave. So 2 of those folded from the same sheet at the same time. And then you can go on and try to go really fine and fold grids that have 64 lines in each direction from really tiny paper, and then your fingers start hurting. But, so this piece is about 6 inches in diameter. But what the whole approach lets you do is, once you fold the pleats, instead of just letting them relax into whatever shape they want, you can start shaping them further. So the pieces so far that I've shown you were based just on the basic tension created by these pleat sequences and maybe a single lock. This is what you can do when you, after folding a bunch of pleats, you start shaping the paper, pulling apart bits that you want to stick out, or holding other parts together. So here, the paper doesn't really want to unfold, but you can pull apart this edge and create an extra surface down there. You can apply a little bit of glue and join some edges. So again, I'm breaking rules of origami. But just to show you the power of the shaping, these 3 pieces are folded from exactly the same sequence of pleats. I made the same sequence of folds here, here, and here, just ended by shaping them differently. You can sculpt with paper then, as if it's a flexible sheet. These 4, the same story, exactly the same sequence of folds. Then you add a little bit of shaping. So in a way, you can use these pleated pieces as bases for folding, for sculpting paper. After you're tired of folding, you can unfold something. If it doesn't look like what you want it to look, you can unfold it. This is unfolded almost all the way. You can see there's barely any paper hidden here. But I've reinforced a couple of points to point up and a couple of other points to point down, and you get this nice regular pattern. This is just the paper preferring to stay folded. when you try to unfold it. Or you can be a little more abstract there, get some curvature. So it doesn't matter what you folded here, what pleats and what sequence, only how you shape it afterwards, how you unfold it and pull it apart, what you do with it. You can use these as patterns for metal casting. Now there are a few other techniques that are, to me, almost as intuitive as what I do. One of them is crumpling. Comes from, interestingly, the same source. Paul Jackson came up with the idea, but Vincent Flutter, a French artist, developed it further. This is a single sheet of paper. It's large when you start with it, but it's crumpled. Look up Vincent Flutter on YouTube. There's a very entertaining short clip of him folding one of his mushrooms. I've crumpled things accidentally too. This one actually really was accidental. I used a folded piece. It was much neater looking when I did that as a pattern for making a sand mold for casting the bronze. And then when I pulled it out of the sand mold, the paper survived, but I couldn't pull it out without crumpling it, without opening up some of the folds. And then I didn't feel like redoing it all. So that's sort of what you get. And of course, it's been done before, not necessarily with mold as a helper, but as an approach to designing molded art. And Jean-Claude Correa, there are a lot of huge pieces that he made that are basically the same shape repeated with minor variations and some intentional mistakes. Well, this wasn't an intentional mistake. I tried to design something and it didn't work out, and then I just left it in the shape that didn't work out. If you try to fold something really accurately but you can't, sometimes still interesting things happen. So these are moire patterns. This is a single really thin piece of paper folded, pleated, and then folded over. You get two intersecting sequences of pleats, and where they intersect, the minor changes give you these patterns. You can actually build moire by hand. This is a very thin sheet of copper folded really, really quickly. I think I made the picture too nice here. You can actually tell that it's metal. It looked like wood before. So the geometry, the constraints that seem obvious that you can't overcome, you can overcome them. They don't matter. And the folds you make don't even matter if you just see them as a way to get a different medium to work with. Shaping is what starts after you've finished folding, for me at least. And whether somebody else calls it origami, I don't really care. So, thank you.